How have continuous integration and continuous delivery been affected by security?
So I think what we've seen more recently is part of times it's gone by the wayside. Teams who want to move fast, they feel as security testing might slow them down. There's also not a lot of tooling around there that I've seen until most recently. More tools are coming out there that can test your code during the CI pipeline. There's tools that can also run kind of aggressive testing against your code in order to try to break it during the CI pipeline. So I think in the past, people forgot about it in a way that that can happen as you grow very quickly. But what I'm really loving is that it's becoming more of a factor, and so people are really just adding that into their pipelines now, which is great because they have these pipelines that they've created.
So does security then suggest that maybe the space is maturing?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot more tools that are becoming available and a lot more people that are building tools and building companies around it. So you can kind of be rest assured that even if you don't want to build it yourself, there's probably a tool out there that you can buy that will help you through that.
What's the best way to handle security in cloud environments? I mean, do you try to plan for everything in advance, or do you just try to adapt as things pop up?
So so at ThreatStack, we run everything in the cloud, and I was at a wonderful talk at reInvent last week where they talked about how they run Amazon.com on the cloud. And one of the biggest things that they've done, and I try to do as well, is log everything. Capture as much logs as possible. If you do run on Amazon, you get the benefit of CloudTrail, which shows you all the events that are happening through there. But even if you don't, if you run another cloud or hybrid cloud, there's a lot of tools that can help you capture user content and data, what people are doing. The thing I usually tell people is to save that data, even if you're not going to do anything with it, because if you save it, you can go back to it later and run analysis on it. And then you might start seeing behaviors change and patterns, and those could help you identify security risks.
But then do you have to carve out that time to actually process that data?
Well, that's the biggest part of it too, absolutely, is that whether you have a dedicated team or not, you definitely want to allocate resources to it. Security is absolutely harder in the cloud, but it's not that much harder. It's harder, but just by a little bit. Because you can't control, it's the classic four walls, your network devices, you don't have those anymore. Almost every node that you might run on Amazon could be a publicly facing node. So adding a lot more visibility and monitoring to your systems is the first place I usually point people to.
How can organizations without dedicated security teams still manage security effectively?
Start small is the biggest one. Just start small. Because if you start small today, a year from now, you'll be in a much better place. ThreatStack, we launched last year. We're arguably a small company. We're not a multi-thousand company. But what we do is we enable everyone to be aware of security risks and do a lot of training sessions where everyone kind of has ownership around security. So as people kind of think of good ideas or things we want to test or deal with, it works out really well. So we try to almost apply security ownership broadly across the company.
So is it training and culture? Is that the key?
It's more of a people issue than a technical issue.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
What is the single biggest technical issue or problem that you're running into right now?
So we ingest a lot of data at ThreatStack. We are scanning systems and receiving all this data, hundreds of thousands of events per second. And so our biggest challenge is actually more of a data problem, is we have a lot of data and doing interesting stuff with that data, and also just the storage and retention of it. So I actually find it as a fun problem because we get to play with new databases and try to find different solutions for these problems.
This is related to that other question. What was the biggest problem that you had 5 years ago, and how did it get resolved, if it did get resolved?
So 5 years ago, I was actually very lucky and was an early adopter to running on cloud systems. And the biggest problem that I had was actually that we were using very little of Amazon services because we wanted to be cloud agnostic was the term. The way that it made a challenge is because now it's great because you can move to any cloud, but it's challenging because you have to do it all yourself. That was a really big challenge for us back then. The way I solved it now is now we run entirely on Amazon, and that means we get to leverage all of the great stuff without having to build it ourselves.
That does solve it,
and that helps us move a lot faster.
Right.
Yeah.
Last question for you: what people or projects are you following these days?
So I'm very interested by Docker. I'm not using it yet really for anything, but I think it's doing some interesting stuff. Kubernetes is something that I am keeping an eye on because I think when it comes to scheduling containers, which is kind of the question mark that I have in my head, I'm kind of interested to see where that project goes, and it looks like it has some good backing behind it, which is great.
Great. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.